What if you were born into a family where Michael Jackson wasn't a celebrity, he was your uncle? What if your father was already a music legend, your aunt was a global superstar, and your family name was recognized almost everywhere in the world? For Jaafar Jackson, this wasn't a fantasy. This was childhood. Jaafar was born into the Jackson family, one of the most influential musical dynasties of all time. But behind the famous surname is a complicated family story filled with music, marriages, siblings, relationships, and extraordinary talent. And understanding Jaafar's family helps explain something important about the man he would eventually become. Because Jaafar didn't simply inherit a famous name. He inherited a legacy. His father, Jermaine Jackson. Jaafar's father is Jermaine Jackson, born on December 11, 1954, in Gary, Indiana. Long before Jaafar was born, Jermaine was already part of music history. He was one of the original members of the Jackson 5, alongside his brothers Jackie, Tito, Jackie, Marlon and Michael. The Jackson brothers began performing together when they were young. Their talent eventually caught the attention of the music industry, and the group became one of the most successful acts of their generation. Jermaine was not simply Michael Jackson's older brother. He was a talented musician and vocalist in his own right. He played guitar and bass, sang lead and backing vocals, and became an important part of the group's early success. And while Michael eventually became the biggest star in the family, Jermaine had already established himself as a respected performer. He also pursued a successful solo career. That meant Jaafar's father understood the entertainment business from the inside. He knew the excitement of performing for huge audiences. He knew the pressure of being famous. He knew what it meant for cameras to follow your family. And he knew that the Jackson surname came with both opportunities and enormous expectations. Jermaine and his children. Jermaine eventually became the father of a large family. His children were born through different relationships and marriages, making Jaafar part of a very large blended family. And this is where Jaafar's family story becomes particularly fascinating. Because when you look at his siblings, you aren't simply looking at one small family unit. You're looking at an entire network of Jackson relatives. Jaafar grew up knowing that his father had already lived through decades of fame before he was even born. And then there was the other side of his family. His mother. His mother, Alejandra Genevieve Oaziaza. Jaafar's mother is Alejandra Genevieve Oaziaza. She was born in Colombia and later became connected to the Jackson family through her relationship with Randy Jackson, Jermaine's younger brother. This is one of the more complicated and unusual chapters in the Jackson family story. Alejandra was previously in a relationship with Randy Jackson. She later married Jermaine Jackson. That meant her personal history became deeply intertwined with two brothers from one of the world's most famous families. Jermaine and Alejandra had children together, including Jaafar and his younger brother, Your Majesty. Their relationship eventually ended, but Jaafar remained part of the huge Jackson family network. And growing up in that environment meant his family life was anything but ordinary. Jaafar's full brother, Your Majesty. Jaafar's younger full brother is Your Majesty Jackson. The two brothers share the same parents, Jermaine and Alejandra. Your Majesty was born in 2000, several years after Jaafar. Unlike some members of the Jackson family, Your Majesty has generally stayed away from the intense level of public attention that surrounded his famous relatives. That makes the brothers an interesting contrast. Jaafar eventually stepped directly into the entertainment spotlight. He pursued singing, then acting, and eventually took on one of the most challenging roles imaginable. Your Majesty, meanwhile, has maintained a considerably lower public profile. But they share something neither of them can escape. The Jackson name. Jaafar's half-siblings. Because Jermaine Jackson had children through different relationships, Jaafar has several half-siblings. Among his paternal half-siblings are Autumn Jackson, Jamie Jackson, Jeremy Jackson, Jordan Jackson, Jermaine Jackson II, Dante Jackson, and Randy Jackson Jr. He also has other extended Jackson relatives through his mother's previous relationship with Randy Jackson. This makes Jaafar's family tree incredibly large. And that's one reason the Jackson family story can sometimes be difficult to follow. There are brothers, half-brothers, sisters, half-sisters, cousins, marriages, and relationships that connect different branches of the family. But at the center of it all is one thing: music. The Jackson 5 connection. Jaafar's father wasn't the only Jackson connected to music. His uncles were part of the same legendary story. Jackie Jackson, Tito Jackson, Marlon Jackson, Randy Jackson, and, of course, Michael Jackson. The Jackson 5 became one of the most important family groups in popular music. They achieved enormous success and helped introduce the world to the extraordinary talent of the Jackson brothers. Michael eventually became the breakout superstar, but his brothers were there from the beginning. And Jaafar was born decades later into the family that had already become synonymous with musical success. Michael Jackson, the Uncle WHO, changed everything. Now we reach the most famous name in Jaafar's family: Michael Jackson. To the world, Michael was the king of pop. To Jaafar, he was Uncle Michael. That difference is incredibly important. Imagine watching one of the most famous people on earth perform on television, while knowing that the person you're watching is someone you call family. Jaafar grew up in close proximity to Michael and the rest of the Jackson family. Michael's influence on the family was enormous. But his influence on Jaafar would eventually become even more significant. Because years after Michael's death, Jaafar would be chosen to portray him on screen. The tragic loss. Michael Jackson died on June 25, 2009. Jaafar was only 12 years old. At that age, losing a close family member can be devastating. But Jaafar wasn't simply losing an uncle. He was losing one of the most important figures in his family's history. And suddenly, the world was talking about Michael everywhere. Television, newspapers, radio, the internet. Fans around the world were mourning. For Jaafar, however, this was personal. The superstar the world was grieving was also a member of his family. And years later, that connection would become central to his career. Janet Jackson, another legend in the family. Jaafar's family story also includes another global superstar: Janet Jackson. Janet is Michael's younger sister and one of the most successful entertainers of her generation. She built an enormous career through music, dance, acting, and live performance. Her influence extends far beyond the Jackson surname. She became a superstar in her own right. So Jaafar's family tree contains not one, but several people who changed entertainment history. And that creates an unusual situation for someone growing up. When your relatives are already legends, how do you establish your own identity? The Jackson family pressure. Being born into a famous family can look glamorous from the outside. But there's another side to it. Pressure. Imagine releasing your first song and having people immediately compare you with Michael. Imagine performing and knowing that your last name belongs to a family famous for extraordinary performances. Imagine entering acting and being asked to portray the most famous member of your own family. That's the challenge Jaafar faced. He wasn't starting from zero. But he wasn't starting from an ordinary position either. He started with the world's attention already on him. And that can be both a blessing and a burden. A family of different personalities. One fascinating thing about the Jackson family is that not every member followed exactly the same path. Some became singers. Some became musicians. Some became actors. Some worked behind the scenes. And others largely stayed away from the spotlight. Jaafar appears to have chosen a path that combines several elements of the family's history: music, performance, and now acting. In a sense, his career brings together different parts of the Jackson legacy. But he is still attempting to put his own stamp on it. From family member to performer, Jaafar began pursuing music seriously and released his debut single, Got Me Singing, in 2019. That was an important moment. Because for the first time, audiences were hearing Jaafar as an artist. Not simply as Jermaine Jackson's son. Not simply as Michael Jackson's nephew. But as a performer. And then came the opportunity that would completely change his public profile. The Michael Jackson role. In 2023, Jaafar was officially announced as the actor chosen to portray Michael Jackson in the biographical film Michael. Think about the irony. A young man born into Michael Jackson's family, a singer who had already started pursuing his own career, was suddenly being asked to portray the king of pop. And there was an enormous amount of pressure. Michael's performances are among the most recognizable in entertainment history. His dancing is iconic. His mannerisms are instantly identifiable. His voice is unmistakable. And Jaafar had to step into all of that. But there was something no other actor could bring to the role. He actually knew Michael. That gave the performance an emotional connection that went beyond imitation. The family legacy comes full circle. This is where Jaafar's story becomes almost poetic. His father helped build the Jackson 5 legacy. His uncle Michael transformed global pop culture. His aunt Janet became an international icon. And now Jaafar is carrying that family story into a new generation. But he doesn't have to repeat their careers. He doesn't have to become Michael. He doesn't have to become Jermaine. He doesn't have to become Janet. He simply has to become Jaafar Jackson, the real story behind the famous name. At the end of the day, Jaafar's family history is both a blessing and a challenge. He was born into opportunity. But he was also born into expectations. He inherited connections. But he also inherited comparisons. And he inherited a name that people around the world already recognized. The question was never whether Jaafar could get attention. The real question was, what would he do with it? And that's what makes his journey so fascinating. Because Jaafar Jackson isn't starting the Jackson story. He's continuing it. But this time, the spotlight belongs to him. And perhaps the greatest tribute he can give his legendary family isn't trying to recreate their success. It's taking everything he inherited and turning it into something that carries his own signature. The Jackson name opened the door. Now Jaafar has to decide what happens after he walks through it.